All right, so today is finally the big day that I've been waiting for since June. And I'm doing this video right on the heels of the last one where I did the review on the beer rack and the sissy bar and all that. So, same outfit. But anyway, as I said in the last video, back in June, I was out riding and on my way to bike night, had some guy with us that had never ridden with us before, and in my opinion had no right to be riding with us, just given how we ride. And sure enough, I slowed down, he didn't. And let's walk around to the back of the bike for those of you who didn't watch the last video and show you what happened. So as you can see, I've already started to take some things apart, but he ran into the back of me and screwed up my rear fender, which in turn screwed up this taillight housing, which in turn caused it to rub on the inside of my bag. So now on the inside of my bag, I've got a rub spot right through to the plastic. So super excited about that. Oh, I can't see anything. There we go. So super excited about that. But dealing with him, and fortunately he had insurance, so I can't really complain too much. So took the bike to Harley. They went through it, figured out what was wrong, what needed to be fixed, and sent that out to the insurance. I talked with the insurance, and the insurance went ahead and cut a check, but they didn't cut it to Harley like I told them to. Instead, they cut me the check. Like, all right, cool. I acquired the shopping list that Harley so graciously assembled for me and went shopping. I got everything that, for the most part, they said I needed. Maybe not everything. Like, they called for a rear subframe and a swing arm. Well, I know the swing arm, it isn't messed up because of the accident. It's a little messed up because my swing arm has bottomed out a few times and bumped into my crash guards, which I've since remedied, but they saw damage. They were going to go ahead and swap it out for me. I'm like, we don't need to do that. There's nothing wrong with it. So save money on not needing that. I don't think I'm going to need the subframe. I guess we'll find out when I take the fender off. I hope I don't. But in case I do, I found a replacement. So I went shopping on eBay. I went shopping on Advanblack, Custom Dynamics. I even went shopping at the Thundermax website. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to start ripping this apart. We're going to get the fender strut off, the fender off, the tail lights, and we're going to have to replace the fender strut. I'll show you why. And when he hit me, and went ahead and split the strut on both sides. So this strut is now garbage. So I've got that. Replacement fender, a different taillight option that we're going to do here. Potentially a slightly different, well, not potentially, definitely a different tail or license plate situation, but it might not, I might be able to salvage some of that. I don't know. Going to find out, but I'm going to start by taking things off. 2 1/4-inch Allens for here. We've got a T45 on this side, a T40 on that side. That's a 9/16 nut. And then I should be able to at least take this off. I am going to try to kind of grind a little bit of meat off of the bracket here to get my step-up seat to slide a little closer to the tank. So grind on that a little bit. We don't need to swap this one. It's not damaged, but we are going to have to take it off. So let me start by getting the docking hardware out of here, taking the bag support out, and probably removing the bag guards. Trying to get to a point where I can access the bolts that actually hold the fender on. So let me start spinning bolts and I'll check back with you. All right, so I managed to get that off. Did in fact have to swap out to do the 2 bolts here. The inner bolt was a 1/2 inch, nut and a T40 Torx. So I did have to grab that. And I had to grab a little 3/8, yeah, a little 3/8 bolt to pull from here. So I had to pull that one, the 2/4 here and here, the T40 in there, and the T40 down in there, along with that 3/8 snip, my zip ties, and it all lifted off. So now that I've got that removed from the bike and set up over here, you can see here's the lower half that should be attached and it's not. So I need to salvage these. I don't know what you call these. I called them something, a slip nut. I don't know. I need to pull these off and swap them over to here. So I got to get these off and just bring these down. So I got my flathead, and I'm hoping to not screw this up too bad in the process, because I only have one of these, and these are about 200 bucks a piece from Harley, or I found the pair for 200 bucks on eBay. So I really hope I don't screw this up. So let me focus here. All right, so now that I have both sides off, the crash guards, the fender strut covers, for lack of a better term, there's also this support bracket down here that's bent all to hell that I did order a new one of those from Harley. I'll show you guys everything that I ordered here in a sec. Mostly I'm just doing a disassembly here. It's starting to get late. I might pick this up tomorrow, and I also don't know if this is going to be a 1 video or a 2 video kind of project. So at this point, that bolt I pulled probably prematurely, but you know, that's what I do. But either way, that on both sides is already pulled. I already unplugged my tail lights, and now I've got that T40, and I should be ready to slide the fender off once I unplug my main harness here. And there we go. So yeah, now I should be able to pull those and roll this back. And let me give that a shot. Hopefully this works out well. I don't know where I'm going to put this when it comes off, so let me figure that out. All right, so with the fender off and her ass in completely exposed, as it should be, you know, it looks like my subframe wasn't actually screwed up at all. It was kicked out, but once I took out the last T40s, it just kind of sprang back into place. I mean, I measured down here to up here, and the difference is pretty much negligible. I mean, we're talking a 1/16 of an inch, maybe a 32nd of an inch, but for my purposes, that's gonna be just fine. So, and I couldn't, you know, not pass up the opportunity to get in here with some of my Purple Power Super Clean, and kind of get in here and clean up a little bit of the exhaust that does tend to build up running that shorty type pipe. I love that pipe, but I'm dealing with some D-cell pop like nobody's business, and all of that carbon buildup on the bags and the suspension is really kind of starting to bug me. So I'm kind of on the fence about going to a 2-1 full length. I know it's going to change the tone, but I think I would like it. I just, you know, that's $1,600 from SP Concept to go that route. And I really like their pipes. I don't know, maybe I'll hit them up and see if we can make something happen. I don't know. But either way, that's off. Got everything over here. We got to take some things off of this fender before we can unbox the new fender. And that's right, you see that, the Advan logo. So first and foremost, we got to take this hardware off, front and rear. That's a 3/4 inch socket. I got to salvage my seat bolt, which that should be pretty easy. Just pop that off. There it goes. So that's taken care of. Then we got to pull out these, which I believe was a 7/16. Yep. So we'll pull those out, pop my Christmas tree here, and then flip the fender over, because underneath I'm going to have to grab my harness. So I don't know that I can do this one-handed, but I don't know if it really matters because, well, how much worse can this Fender get? Ugh. Yeah, and then we gotta grab that harness out from under there. I don't think I need to rip it down because of how Advan does theirs. I think I just cut this little holder, but I'm gonna try to rip it down first. And then probably go ahead and pull the license plate surround off and decide if I'm going to pop those off or just leave them there because they're not being reused, at least right now. So anyway, let me strip this down. I have the replacement bracket here, over there, and it should be about all I need is this hardware and then the new bracket, and the rest of this is essentially garbage. So sit tight, let me rip it apart. All right, and that is a deconstructed Fender. Got the wiring harness out of there, and if I remember correctly, blue is for the low side of the bike, red is high side, so just kind of make sure you keep that in mind. I don't know, like I was saying, that I'll need to keep this rubber housing. I don't think I do. I'm pretty sure the way Advan plans it out is that your wiring harness now goes on the outside of the fender instead of the inside, being subject to road debris and whatnot. So I'm not at the moment going to worry too much about pulling this bracket out or these side brackets. I may do that at some point, maybe before I junk the fender. But for the moment, this is just going to stay the way it is. My license plate bracket is kind of messed up because it kind of broke there, but I think this is salvageable if I decided to go that route. I did lose the plug on the back of my license plate frame. I don't know if I want to just procure a replacement plug or buy a replacement frame. I haven't decided, so I got to think on that one, but either way, I don't think I'm going to like the plan that Advan does for their tail light or their license plate illuminations. So let me get this out of here, make some room, and we're going to crack into that box and enjoy that goodness. Hold on. All right, so in that box was this. This is the Holeshot Fender from Advanblack. I did buy this because they don't know who the hell I am, and I don't blame them. But here's the kicker: is I thought I called them up because I was going to do the whole kit that included the tail lights, and whoever I talked to said for whatever reason with the 23.5 CVOs and 24-25 regulars, these don't work with the stock new bags. Don't know why. He didn't elaborate. So it's like, all right, cool. But the fender will fit. He goes, yes, done, send it. 6 weeks later, it shows up. So we're gonna do a little bit of a hodgepodge here because this fender comes with this license plate mount, these license plate lights, and then of course all of the hardware to mount everything up for, you know, the tail lights and the license plate and all that. Well, obviously I'm not going to use the lights that came off of it, and their lights didn't work. So what am I going to do? This. We have too much stuff in the way. Custom Dynamics and their Tombstone lights, or at least I'm going to go ahead and call them Tombstone lights, even though I don't think they're technically Tombstone lights. They're more like filler lights because that's a Tombstone light. But either way, these with the covers, so that way I can hide those ugly ass bolts, the T40 and T45 that we took off earlier. So these lights are set up to run off of the stock Harley harness, rear harness that I've got there. Advan sends you a rear harness that works with their tail lights. I don't have their tail lights. So we're going to, like I said, use that, but that had a different license plate setup than Advan as far as lighting goes. So what I think I'm gonna do is I think I'm gonna try to rob the plug off of my stock light, and I got heat shrink solder tubes and heat shrink solder a plug back onto this, and I hope that all of these line up, and it looks like they will, and I can use this to illuminate my license instead of what I think is kind of a goofy idea, but you know, they seem to like it, is these little standoff lights. And if you go and watch Steve's video at Stickbaggers, I think he does it on his Advan channel, but he talks about these, and I'm sure they do a great job. It doesn't go with the flow of all of the lines. They're kind of like a bad afterthought to me. So I'm hoping that my idea of combining Custom Dynamics and Advanblack will work. We'll find out. So what I'm going to do is take these, I believe they're called Bosses, and I'm going to get them run in here, and then I'm going to take the Fender over to the bike. Actually, before I do, I'm going to put my seat nut in there, put it back in. They did provide a new one, but I think I'm going to, yeah, I'll probably use this one just because it's new and it's got a fancy circlip in there, as opposed to these cheap plastic ones that apparently people have problems with them falling out. I never have, but maybe I've been lucky. So I think we're going to use theirs so I don't have to worry about it because of their C-clip. So let me go ahead and get these put on, like I said, in here, and go and drop it on the bike, and then start figuring out how I'm going to get Harley to talk to Advan, to talk to Custom Dynamics, all the way around. This should be fun. Probably won't get done tonight, but it should be fun. Hold on. Okay, so Fender is roughly set in place. I only put the screws into the rear bosses, so it's kind of teetering down low, and I did that on purpose after watching one of Steve's videos, because this is going to give me some more room to get my arms and whatnot up in here so I can attach my new license plate bracket into these holes side by side with the hardware that they provided. I am going to hit that with some blue Loctite. I got to grab that. But basically, we're going to take this curved bracket and place it right here. Let's see here. Yeah, right there. So it'll ride roughly like that. So let me grab my blue Loctite. I just wanted to check in and show you that they don't have the same holes on the Holeshot Fender that the stock does. Because Stalker's got the 3 holes there. And technically, you're only going to see this hole and this hole, in theory, once I'm done. These 2 will be blocked. So it's going to have a cleaner look. But, you know, obviously not as clean as if, say, I'd gone with a carbon fiber Fender. But everyone was sold out. So, anyway, maybe in time. I don't know. I still really like this color. So, and finding a chopped carbon fiber Fender that matches Harley's chopped or Thrashing's chopped is proven a little difficult. So anyway, let me get that license plate bracket on. I just want to check in with you, and then I'm going to swivel the Fender up into place and bolt it in. And now it's just going to be a matter of, you know, bolting this in, bolting that in, and figuring out how to make things talk. So I might have to get my solder tubes and my heat gun. Should be a good time, but I'll check in with you guys when I get to the next good stopping point. All right, so today's a new day. I got a little bit late last night and I ran out of motivation, and it was time for dinner. Fat kid was hungry. So today I've already run out to the hardware store because I am bound and determined to make my idea of this license plate holder work. You know, the Advan base with the Custom Dynamics cover. So I'm not using any of the hardware that Advan provided. I went down to Ace and picked up some stainless steel flathead screws with washer and nylock nut, so that way I can just kind of I can fasten it all together. It's all going to work, and then I have to cut and use those heat shrink solder sticks that I have, and I'm going to make the OE harness talk to the Advanblack, or sorry, the Custom Dynamics frame. So I'm hoping I've got the plug from the original taillight setup. I can just snip that and heat shrink that on there, so I've got a quick connect, OE style connection. So let me root around in one of my takeoff bins up there, find my stock taillight, and hopefully cut and show you what I'm going to do to hopefully make all this work. One sec. Okay, so it looks like that worked exactly as I had hoped it would. So this is the OE plug off of the OE license plate mount that came on the bike, and I just went blue to white and black to black with the heat shrink solder tubes. Might have slightly overcooked one with the lighter, but I did plug it in just to test and see if it worked, and it did. So I'm going to take these wires, I'm going to wrap them up in some of this Tesa tape that I have, which is just a cloth automotive electrical tape. So, and I got that off of Amazon, so I'll just give this a wrap. So that'll, clean that up real nice. And then I can go ahead and mount this to the bracket instead of using these standoff lights that Advan includes. That you're supposed to, thread through and then, angle down towards your light, and it's not clean. I like the idea. I'll keep them, but I think this is gonna look way cleaner than what Advan's got planned. So I'm just gonna take the hardware that I bought at Ace, all of that stuff, get my license plate in here, bolt it all up, and then put this back on the new Fender. So one sec, when I check back in, you'll see how all this kind of ties together now. All right, so she's on, and I do like that chrome frame on the black base. The only thing I don't really like, and I think this is going to be a temporary fix for now, is my exposed wire, because I'm not going to have anything to hide it. I'm not going to have a tail light here, but I don't know. I'll have a saddlebag that comes out, so it'll be a little less noticeable. But I think this is going to be a temporary placeholder for now, but it does light up. It's solid. It ain't going nowhere. And looking down behind it, nothing's touching my paint. I might try to find another way to zip tie that plug a little bit more, but I actually really groove how that looks. I think, I dare say, I might like that more than the Custom Dynamics setup that I had. So next, I'm going to grab the Custom Dynamics tombstone lights and cover and get that installed. It's actually really simple. I just wipe all this down with some alcohol, and I'll stick this in place, and it'll cover up this, and then the light itself will stick to the cover, and then we just plug it into the stock harness. So let me get one of those done, and I'll show you how it looks, and we'll take out the next one. All right, so the cover's on, and I did go ahead and spray the cover with some IPA, gave it a wipe down so it's nice and clean. But as you can tell, it covers up that ugly bolt. Now that means that if I ever have to take off this saddlebag support, that's going to kind of suck. But I'm going to hope that I don't ever have to do that. So, no harm, no foul. Now is the tail light, which will essentially just set right in here. But if I get the damn wires to cooperate, there we go. It'll set in there, and that's going to look good. Definitely going to look good. Now it's got the same peel and stick on the back, but it's also got these little tabs here that I believe the directions have you snip off, because reasons. But I will confirm that and let you know. And let me get this in there before I have to wipe that down again. Hold on. All right. So they're both on. Real simple. There was a little module that you plug in line to the tail light first and then into the bike harness. I'm not sure what it does or how it does or why it does what it does, but it does, so it's there. I've got everything all zip tied up, tucked in, nice and neat, both sides. So now I'm going to do something off camera to try to make these crash bars fit just a little bit better. You know, kind of the flange that goes up here is awful wide compared to the black versions of the same thing. So I'm just going to snip the back of it about 1/4 inch, maybe 3/8 of an inch, smooth it out and drop it on there, so that way my seat should slide up a little bit further and not put such a harsh crease in the seat material. So I'm going to give that a whirl, and then when I check back with you, the bike should be all put back together, because my rear end rebuild is pretty much complete. So one sec while I run an angle grinder on expensive motorcycle parts. Hold on. All right, so it's all wrapped up. You notice I have you on the tripod because, you know, 2 hands. I'm going to show you how it all looks. You know, hazards, blinkers, and all that. I think it turned out really, really good. There's a couple of things I'm going to keep tweaking in time, you know, because I'm not quite satisfied, but that's just me being picky. So that being said, let me get out of your way. You can see how it looks. Hold up. All right, there it is. Give you a tilt down here. Oh yeah. Tell me that isn't a sexy ass. So, you guys sit tight. I'm gonna fire up the lights. We got left, nice and bright. We got brakes, that'll get your attention. And you'll notice even the license plate is lit up. Considering the wires were completely sheared off to begin with, I think that was pretty good idea I had, if I don't mind to toot my own horn. So, one second, we're gonna go ahead and close this out. As I said, a couple of things I didn't like. One was how that wire, you can kind of see it there. But with the bag on, it's pretty well camouflaged. You'll notice that the gap between the fender and the light is pretty uniform on this side. Over here, it kind of grows towards the bottom. I'm gonna have to spend some time trying to figure that out. I did kind of loosen up the top bolts here at the bosses and kind of snug this one down first and then this one, and didn't really make much of a difference. So I'm not sure why that's cattywampus, but I'll figure it out. I'm just excited to be done, ready to go and play with this thing. So, like I said, this I like, and it took a little bit of finagling, a little bit more trimming of the license plate just to kind of make sure I was able to track my wire through, which in retrospect, I probably didn't need to trim near as much as I actually did, but you know what? It's hidden, ain't nobody gonna know but me and the couple of you that watch. So, there's the old banged up one, if that sheer amount of damage is coming through. And here's the new one. So, no more holes down here, you know, that we have to hide with a curved license plate cover. This stands off of the fender itself. You know, no more big bug-eyed taillights, which don't get me wrong, they grew on me. I think I would have liked them more if I had spent the money for the smoked ones, but you know what? This must have happened for a reason, because I was on the fence about going this route or the smoked, and well, the decision got made for me. So, but yeah, this really wasn't bad. It's a couple hours. I mean, it's not a quick process by any means, you know. It probably would have taken longer if I had beer on hand, but apparently my beer fridge is empty, so party foul on my end. But you know, it took 6 weeks to get the Fender. Everything else showed up really fast, so I can't complain there. But you know, Advanblack killed it on the paint. Custom Dynamics nailed it with their lighting as always. And I was glad that I was able to make Custom Dynamics and Advanblack and Harley all talk to each other. So that's all I've got. Yeah, it's probably going to be a lengthier video, so my apologies, but it is what it is. I had a good time. This was a lot of fun. The first time I've taken the rear end off of a touring bike. So any questions, comments, concerns, let me know. I'll get back at you. And until then, we'll catch y'all next time. See ya.